Hello everybody. We're going to take our time to learn the dissolve effect, where we take a person or an object and we pixelate it and we try to create a feeling where they are dissolving away into space by creating different various particles and having this person have that sort of movement happening. I am utilizing a falling man. You can utilize anything you want. Thanos, I guess, is a very popular attempt to do this. And the first thing we want to do is set up our subject. So I'm going to take this guy and unlock this layer and then move him downward so that there's plenty of space. And you can see that he has a white background. We can go ahead and remove that background. And then I'm actually going to go back to this little menu over here and say flattened image. That actually creates that white background again for me. And if you missed where that was, there is a little submenu here in my layers panel where that option is. Now I'm going to unlock this layer and then right click on it and we're going to say duplicate layer. And here we're going to call this layer blur. And we're going to duplicate this because I need one of these layers to act as the particles that are moving up. So in our case, I'm going to do that. Go ahead and hide that bottom layer and then we're going to utilize the smudge tool. Your smudge tool may be hidden underneath your blur tool or sharpen tool, but it is a smudge tool. And what it does is it mimics the idea of pushing your finger across a wet canvas or paint and moving pixels in that sort of way. So you want to make your brush size, something relative to your actual image. And then we have a strength of 50% here and a soft brush. And what we want to do is click and drag so that we start creating and pushing these pixels upwards. And we actually want to do this a lot. So it's going to take you a little bit of time. You want to push as many pixels upwards as possible so that we can utilize these colors. The reason we're doing this is because we want to have the same colors that are floating away related to the actual person or object that you're using. So we are going to keep smudging this thing out. Go ahead, and if you need to increase the size, that would also give you a little bit more strength, but we want to push as much as possible out. And this is kind of a fun thing to do. So, enjoy your time pushing all these pixels out. Just make sure that you're not giving yourself too many blank spaces. You can always reduce the size and kind of push things back if you need to, and just kind of roll these things out as much as you can. So here I am working it, one little click at a time, just enough to make it so that my particles have some sort of color working with them. Be careful about the spaces in between. You don't want to accidentally use the white space in between and lose some of the pixels. So I will be working these ones from the bottom and trying to closing that gap a little bit so that we have a good set of colored pixels that we're going to use as our particles. There we go. It's not bad. I'm going to go ahead and use this. So the next step we want to do is to, we can show our other layer as well. It's underneath right now. But what we can do is hide that top layer. And I'm going to go ahead and remove the background on this. So not on that layer, on this layer, remove the background here. Now this guy we need to subtract away so that we have parts missing from him. And now that I have my layer mask on here, anything else that I paint black on top of this layer mask like this, it will remove him. So that's exactly what we want to do, but I want to do that using some different brushes. So if you head to your brushes panel, brush is the B panel, and then there's actually underneath window, there are brushes. And this pulls up a series of different brushes that you can utilize. There are some general brushes that we have already been using as a default. There's some dry media brushes and some wet media brushes, and there's special effect brushes, and these will change the shape of the brush that you are using. So if we want, we can actually utilize some concept brushes, some leaves. You might want to choose something that matches the picture that you are actually utilizing to subtract from or dissolve. You can also head up to the right hand corner here and you can say import brushes or get more brushes if you don't have any. So if I say get more brushes, it will bring me out to the Adobe site, and there are lots of different brushes you can try. There's some splatter, that one works really well, some cross hatches, even all these different halftone brushes, impressionists. And if you download one, you can save this file anywhere you want. And then back inside of Photoshop, we can go to this small little sub menu again right here in our brushes and right here, and we can say import brushes, find that file that you downloaded, and they will pop up here in our brushes. So you can utilize these if you'd like. Anything that might work for your particular effect. I'm going to go ahead and use this nice little paint box here. It's not bad. I used a different brush in my demo, and that's okay. So from here, I want to dissolve away some of this guy. So again, I'm going to be using the black color on my layer mask, and then I'm going to use a small amount here and start subtracting away from him so that these are the particles that have fallen off. And you can variate the size of your brush. You don't want to subtract too much. You don't want to not subtract enough. It's kind of have to get a little artistic here. And you'll notice this brush actually changes rotation as you move along, so it doesn't create too much pattern. And there is a subtraction there. Now we're going to do the same thing on that top layer, but in reverse. And what we want to do is make a mask on that top layer, the blur layer. So select blur, click the mask, and we're actually going to fill this in with our paint bucket, fill it with black so that none of it is visible. Now we want to paint the opposite. So if you press X on your keyboard, it will swap the foreground and the background color, and that gives me white. And now with my paintbrush, that same one, I can start painting the particles in. And you don't want to get it too heavy at first, so you might backtrack and make your brush small, or even change the opacity of the brush, do something to make it not too heavy, and then sort of start brushing in those. Maybe a little bit difficult to see, and if that is the case, you can always go to make a new layer. So down at the bottom there is a new layer. Bring it to the bottom. If you hold down Command when you make a new layer, it'll automatically do that. I'm going to fill this layer with white so I can see a little bit better of how that works. You can also, if you need to, change your brush. Again, there are many different brushes available. So it's helpful to zoom in, and then you can come through and slowly start painting in all those little particles that we had made. I do recommend having some bigger ones at the bottom, but then as you go up, you might want to make your brush smaller. So as you go up, make those particles smaller so that they have drifted away. That's one good tool. Also space them out a little bit more as they go up. And if you have some areas that have too much, go ahead and press X to switch to black again and start taking away those areas that were too much. And you're going to have to get a little artistic here. Switch back and forth, maybe adjust the size of your brush as you're doing so, and start just spacing these things out and making this work for you. And that is the general idea of how this works. Again, take your time to do it. Make sure that you make it as realistic as possible. Backgrounds help. You can also switch the other layer if you feel like there's too much going on here. You can go ahead and paint some of that back. Make sure you're always painting the mask and not the actual image. That's very helpful. So you can paint some of this back and work it until it comes out. Again, I'm not going to bore you with all the details, but here's an example of what we're looking for, where you have all these particles falling off this person, and he has chunks of him cut away so that he looks like he's dissolving. Thanks, guys.